Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahmam Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sadasiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryandam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Sakana Vavadu, Sakana Punaktu, Sakaviryam Karabhavage, Tejasvina Vadida Mustuma Vatnishavage. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Yogena Chittasya Patena Vacham Malam Sarirasya Cha Vaityagena Yopa Rotmam Pravaram Muninam Patanjalim Pranjalim Anatosmi. Good morning. So we have gone through the introduction to the context of taking up Patanjali Yoga Sutra in the last two classes. Now we will continue to complete that and to get into the text proper. So the Yoga Darshana is bringing out the essence of Sankhya Darshana. And we saw that liberation in Yoga Darshana or the Patanjali's Yoga Sutra is called Kaivalyam. We are going to learn about these terms when we go into the text proper. Kaivalyam means liberation, but in a slightly different perspective to that. I think what we have to understand, the Sanatana Dharma's main goal can be learned and applied through these three important schools. The Sankhya Darshana did the analysis and concluded that the fulfillment or the complete liberation from grief, or in other words, from samsara, is not possible by any means that is available in this world. We saw that in the two of the Tattva Samasa Sutra. We saw that very briefly. Fine. So what that would give us, if these worldly things are not going to give a liberation to us, and for anyone who seeks liberation, whatever it is, the worldly things of no use, is it not? Therefore, Sankhya Darshana's understanding and application should give us a very important ability, virtue, called dispassion or vairagyam. You remember the word vairagyam, we studied in Tattvabodha as well. So vairagyam is the essential outcome of Sankhya Darshana's understanding and application of it. Then when we studied the Vedanta, Vedanta very eloquently defined everything, including liberation, moksha, mukti, and it said that it is not something that is anything to do with the physical place or time. It is not something to acquire. Something comes and goes. It is eternal. Therefore, it gave very good definition and knowledge about what is moksha. In other words, the Vedanta gave us an important virtue called jnanam. So Sankhya gave us the opportunity to get the vairagyam, and Vedanta gives you the jnanam. Then what is the problem? We should just go ahead and get the jnanam. We are not able to get it. Otherwise, everybody who reads all this text should be a jnani now, should be a liberated soul now. The impediment being the instrument that helps us to sustain vairagyam and obtain the jnana. What is that instrument? Is the buddhi, manas, chittam, and all that. So therefore, we know that from the Tattvabodha as well as from Sankhya Darshana, all this buddhi, manas, everything is prakriti. Prakriti means unconscious principle, insentient principle, innate, inert. Therefore, if it is inert, how can you teach jnanam? Is it not? Buddhi can understand, but buddhi is also borrowed light. So if it's a material thing, you don't give it knowledge, but you shape it. Therefore, the missing bit for us, for many of us who studies all this literature, shastras, still not getting the true potential of it, is because we are not ready with the right quality of the mind, the instruments, the embodiments. Therefore, you need what you need. You need abhyasa. Abhyasa is exercise. See, you may read hundreds of exercise books. You have all the knowledge. It's absolutely no use. But the moment you start walking on the street, even if you're not knowing the exercise book, you're already on the path, is it not? So you need abhyasam. So the science that gives the abhyasam in a more sastric way and leading us towards the jnanam in the Vedanta is Yoga Sutra. So Vivekam from Vedantam, Vairagyam from Sankhya Darshanam, and Abhyasam comes from the Yoga. So you cannot not have any of those things. Because if you do Abhyasam without knowing the purpose of it, Abhyasam won't be right. So we have gone through that. So therefore, what we are going to do is to understand the Abhyasa Shastra. But Abhyasam also requires certain definition, some understanding of it. That's what we are going to do. So the Yoga Darshana, Yoga Sutra got two words, Yoga and Sutra. Literally, I think we always see the literal meaning and then we go to the Lakshyartham. Yoga means there are so many meanings. Be very careful because when we study a particular school of thought, we will use the paribhasha or the glossary of the terms used in that school of thought. Therefore, the yoga in Yoga Sutra is very different from, not very different from, subtly different from yoga from other texts. So literally it means abiding, merging, joining, to be one with, to transcend. You can find hundreds of meanings for it. We will park this definition right now because Patanjali is going to teach us what is yoga means. Therefore, we will learn from this more and more. But literal meaning is to be one with, to abide in something. But the thought may come to you, yoga means generally an exercise. Yoga asana, we know it. There are many different yogas you have. There's something called Hatha Yoga. Hatha Yoga is yoga that is done by controlling the embodiments, the body, the grossest form of your body. What is the grossest form of the body? Annamaya kosham and pranamaya kosham. Prana is gross because you can smell, you can see this breathing going up and down. Therefore, Hatha Yogam is also a yoga. There was a Mahatma called Swatma Rama who wrote a Hatha Yoga Pratipika about how to control the body, how to control the prana. We will learn about a little bit more on this because there's nothing is on its own sufficient, and nothing is not necessary. Everything is necessary. But those who follow the Hatha Yoga as the principal means of learning yoga follow certain procedures and principles and practice, but finally coming into the Raja Yoga, which is what the Patanjali is going to enunciate for us. Vivekananda was the one everybody associates Raja Yoga with, because he was the Mahatma who actually amplified the hidden treasure of Patanjali. There is also what's called the Mantra Yoga, which we all do it without even knowing it. Mantra Yoga is reciting mantras, sort of japa parayanas, and especially in the Sanatana Dharma, especially the slokas created a lot of imagery about God. Ataram maturam mathurhatipati. So you think of Krishna with the beautiful lips, nectar pouring lips. So you have different imagination of the iconography came in. You see, bear in mind, Abhyasam is about training the mind. It is very subtle. Therefore, to train the mind, you need to have a lot of techniques. Today, I think the yoga industry is a $1 billion industry. I think in West, especially in US, and it's every corporate, if you go, there is a hall of meditation. Management science has took this over. Every management training, you would see there will be some sort of a meditative therapeutic. So they have taken many aspects of this glorious science and adopted to achieve certain milestones in shaping a personality. But it is like, using a small percentage of the potency of yoga. So the visualization is very important. So you visualize the God, and then what happens is when you visualize it, you become lasim, you become prem, you become love. The mind becomes merging into that picture. So that is a kind of a yoga. When you think of something and then you merge yourself into this. Tantric took this one very seriously. It's called Laya Yoga. So Hatha Yoga is a physical, pranic focus. Mantra Yoga is about focus purely on mantras, recitation, japa, parayanas. Laya Yoga is in so many elaborate ways. I mean, Tantric did a Kashmiri Saivism got it, Tantric got it, Kundalini, chakras. All that is all visualization to bring your thoughts goes all over the place. To bring it to that, you need to give them something. But the Raja Yoga is where the mind plays the dominant role. For example, in the Hatha Yoga, why do we do pranayama as a main thing? Because there the dictum is from the Patanjali Sutra, they have taken out one particular understanding that the mind follows the prana. Therefore, if something is following something, who do you want to control? Not the follower, control the leader. Therefore, Hatha Yoga took that axiom, and therefore you can experiment. Not now. Maybe when you finish the class, sit down for 5 minutes. Just have a long, deep breathing. 5-10 times. When you finish that, after a couple of minutes, think about what happened, how you experienced it. You start with some anxiety, but when you finished it, you feel a little bit of bliss there. It's not magic. It's not a magic. It's not, you got enlightenment immediately. No, it's not. The little bit of bliss comes out because the thought occurrences in your mind has come down without you knowing it. So taking that as a root, and then to do this kind of a breathing, you have difficulty, impurities, because breathing, you need apparatus. You don't even know how the breathing happens, but the passage of the nostrils and nose and the lungs and everything have to be perfect, decarbonated. Therefore, you need to control your body. It's not like going like sweating out in the exercise, aerobic, running out, breathing like a dog. That's not the way. So all this is taught in Hatha Yoga, and Hatha Yoga teachers teach you, and many of you may be already knowing it, doing it. That's all fine. But here we are talking about something different. The second word is Sutra. Sutra generally means a pithy statement, aphorism, very short statement. That's how everybody translates this into. But it is a lot more than that. There is a sloga somewhere, I think in Vayu Purana somewhere. It defines Sutra as Alpakshram, Asangdittam, Saravat, Visvatomukam, Ashtogam, Anabhyam, Chasutram, Sutra Vido Viduhu. Very simple. So first is Alpakshram. Alpam means limited. Aksharam means letter. So Alpa Aksharam means made up of very few letters. It means you don't write even one extra letter if you can do it without it to convey the meaning. So precise, concise, not only in words, in letters. Asandikta. Sandikta means suspicion, doubts, dubious. Asandikta means absolutely there is no ambiguity. So just because you want to reduce the sentences, you can't convey an ambiguous meaning to this. So it has to be as lucid as it can be. Sanghitam. Okay. Is it like an abbreviation therefore? No, it's not an abbreviation. It also conveys the essence of what is being conveyed. H2O is an abbreviation. It doesn't convey by the letter itself. So Saravat. Sara means the essence, made up of essence. So it is conveying in a very nutshell the essence of what is being conveyed. This is very interesting. Next one is Visvato Mukham. Mukham means projection. Visvato means enormous, many, spread. Even though it is very precise and concise, it is able to produce very different meanings. Very many meanings. I would say different. Different means don't think that contradictory meaning. Then it becomes the dubious one. It is supplementary meaning. You're able to expand into more and more and more. That's the reason why the great sutras have got a phenomenal amount of explanation given by many people. I'm also saying this because no matter how many times you listen to from how many people, you'll always find a new definition. So there's a tendency. It is okay in a Laukika science. You know how to do Pascal programming is fine. You know it how to do it, fine. But in the Sanskrit or in a Sastric literature, you have to keep on listening because Visvatomukam, everything got a very different meaning. And a teacher may give you a very different meaning which you did not even understand before. This is there. Astogam. Stogam means protruding stuff, which is added to. It is in sometimes you see when you see the mantras or slogas, you say fat, it will say who. Some matra they will add to make this syllable looks better, and there is no meaning at all. So even for the sutra, don't add any such additional words. For alpaksharam is additional, no letters. Yet there's no additional word, additional phrases added to make it look beautiful. No. Anavadyam. Anavadyam means, okay, first all this is about the words, letters, and the letters construct. Anavadyam means meaning. There is no incorrect meaning. There is no viparita jnanam. It should not lead to misinterpretation. That's what it means. All this is called Sudram. Sutra vido viduhu. So those who know say this is what Sutra means. So what it is, therefore, is that we are going to meet very pithy statements, very short, terse statement. There won't be any verb or subject, predicate, objects. It won't be a sentence. It's not a poetry. And therefore, we need to take the understanding from the teachers. So we know that we are going to learn this by the help of many, many stalwarts. Whatever we learn from anybody is always there from somebody else. So we all take it from, like a bee, bee is the best example. Bee goes and tastes out in everything. And then whatever is good, it brings back and give it to everybody else. So that's what we are trying to do. So Kapila's Tattva Samasa Sutra of Sankhya is the main thing from where the Patanjali Sutra came in. There are many, many authors. I mean, there are, I would say, Yoga Sutra is the most elaborated, articulated literature in the Western world, I can say. Everybody writes it. They read one time and then they write a book. And there are so many books there and so many different interpretations of it. But when there is always better to read the source first. My father always told me that when you read a poetry or a sutra, anything, if you know the language with a dictionary, you try to understand first. You may not understand because you are not good enough to understand, but you will have some inferences. Those inferences are very, very valuable. Even it is not perfect, it's very valuable. Then you go and then learn from the authors who taught you, and then you understand and you modify your thinking and so on and so forth. So it's always a good way of learning. I'm just suggesting to you, it works for me. So I pick up a few things which are very important, which I may refer to. One is, the most important one is Sankhya Pravachana Bhashya by Vyasa. Now, there's a very big confusion in this because Vyasa appears in everything. Vyasa wrote this, compiles the Vedas. Vyasa wrote this Mahabharata. Vyasa wrote the Brahma Sutra. Absolutely no doubt about it. Vyasa wrote all the Puranas, they say. Many Puranas came very late. We don't know. Maybe it is. The very word Vyasa itself is an adage to compiler. So for Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, there is a bhashyam called Sankhya Pravachana Bhashya. You remember bhashyam is that which explains a sutra. And if the bhashyam cannot be understood, then somebody writes a tika or vartika or a karika, depending on how the structure is. So the Vyasa Bhashyam is considered by all the great teachers today as the most important one. And he also takes a view that Patanjali did not create the yoga darshanam, but he has systematically brought into an application level. Then for the Vyasa Bhashyam, there was the Mahatma called Vachaspati Mishra. He's a great man. He was in the 10th century, 9th or 10th century, Advaiti. But he has gone through, he written about Vishadvaitam, Advaitam, he wrote a Tattva Bindu on Mimamsam, this one on Tattva Vaishardi on the Patanjali Sutra. He is called Sarvatantra Swatantra Mahatma. So he has written Bhashyam on it. Then there is one Mahatma called Vijnana Bhikshu in 14th or 15th century. I don't know all the timing correctly, but he had attempted something very interesting, which looks very obvious, but very difficult to implement. He attempted to write his Bhashya, his Vartikam, bringing the Sankhya philosophy, Yoga philosophy, and Vedanta, particularly Advaita Vedanta, into one. As a result, none of the schools really liked that. Everybody said, this is not right. Anyway, so that was something which written. In the meantime, there's one called Raja Martanda by Bhojaraja. Bhojaraja, you might have all, if you read Chandamama stories, you would know Bhojaraja stories. Bhojaraja is one of those greatest king who ruling from Gujarat to Madhya Pradesh. The capital of Madhya Pradesh, Bhopal, coming from his name, Bhojaraja. Unlike the great emperors of South, like Cholas, who have been ruling most of the Southeast Asia, Bhojaraja was intellectual. He's a poet, and he written books on so many things. And he wrote Yoga Sutra. They attribute the prayer that we just now recited for Patanjali to him. I'm not sure, but then there is a Raghavananda Saraswati, Patanjali Rahasya, which become a part of the important derivation for the later Vaishnavic school as well. Then Bhava Ganesha's Pratipika. Then there is called Nagoji Bhatta. He's a grammarian, and he wrote two books, Lagvi and Brahati. Lagvi is a very simple way of interpreting the Yoga Sutra, and Brahati is an elaborate one, more on the grammatic structures and metaphysical structure. Don't worry, we will not go into those things. The interesting one is Narayana Tirtha. He's a great poet, philosopher. He did on Mimamsa Sutra and also on the Yoga Siddhanta Chandrika and the Patanjali Yoga Sutra. But the best one, for me at least, and simply to think is Sadashiva Brahmendra's Yoga Sudhakara. It's quite an Advaitic one in approach, but it's very, very good one. And there is also from the Nada Muni's disciples, Vallabhacharya has written on this, Krishnamacharya written on it, and there is one great scholar in 19th century, 20th century in Sri Lanka, Vasudeva Iyengar. He's a very great book, Bhashyam, in that he's written. But we look at it primarily from the interpretation of Vyasa, and where it is necessary to pick up from the Vachaspati Mishra and Sadashiva Brahmendra. So how are we going to study this? So introduction we finished. We know you all know it now. What's the context we are studying this? And we also know about the Patanjali stories. Of course, you can read lots of books to reinforce that. Then the Patanjali Sutra has got into 4 parts. The part 1 is called Samadhi Pada. Here he calls it Pada. Pada means a quarter. Here you can get the chapter. He is talking about Samadhi. You will not get away with this word. This is going to be coming to our discussion so often. Don't worry, Samadhi is not, as we normally associate somebody is dead and you bury them into a pit. No. We abuse many words. That's not the thing. I would reserve the definition of it right now. We will talk about it later. The first part is Samadhi Padam. We can translate into the science of yoga. You may say that, look, I thought you're going to say Abhyasam. But even as Abhyasam, when you go to the gym, the instructor is going to take you around and show you this is a dumbbell, this is a bench press, this is the bar, this is the squat bench. And he's going to introduce all this, give you first title instructions. And then if you do, what will happen? How do you get the 6 packs? So you need to understand this. So the Samadhi Padam is what we're going to go through first. It's got 51 sutras. I think almost all of them are relevant. So we will go through all of them. That will give us an absolute understanding of what is Raja Yoga. We will do that. Then we go to the second part called Sadhana Pada. Sadhana Pada means the method, the abhyas. I call it the art of yoga. So here we are going to learn from Patanjali what he says about how do we go about doing this. He's going to bring in what's called the Ashtanga Yoga. Some people translate Ashtanga Yoga to be 8-fold. Fold means just you fold, isn't it? Or 8 steps. It gives an impression that as if it is you start from step 1 to step 8 gradually. Not strictly so. I mean, you have to do all this together. It's like a spider with the 8 legs you move around. So we will learn about those things. So the Ashtanga Yoga comes in the Sadhana Padam. And then it gives you certain instructions. It gives you one sutra, for example, Sthiram Sukhasanam. Yogasanam is finished, one sutra. Then you need to go to Hatha Yoga to understand all these physical postures better. Same way you say 4 or 5 sutras on the pranayamas finished. So we will do that, and 55 sutras are there. So we will do that. Then part 3 is called Vibhuti Pada. You know what is Vibhuti? You know Vibhuti Yoga, you studied in Bhagavad Gita. Vibhuti is the glories, the virtuous attainments. You know, you as a student of Vedanta, you must always ask, what am I going to get? What is the benefit of it? So here, he talks about various Vibhutis. So much so, some of the Vibhutis are miraculous. There is a Tamil beautiful poem by Thaimano Swami. It says, Kanduga Madakari Vasamai Nadatalam, Karadivim Pulivayim Katalam, Ur Singa Mudugin Merkolalam, Katchevi Edutatalam, Ven Tanali Radamaitu Aindalogatai, Vedit Vitunalam, Jalamel Nadakalam, Kanalme Nirikalam. It goes on like this. It basically says, you can control a roaring lion, a monstrous elephant, the snake. You can walk on the fire. You can walk on the water. You know, Bhagavan Anjanaya Hanuman used to do this. Ashtasiddhi, you know, you can become bigger animal, Mahima, smaller. That Taimano song goes, finally says, Chintayai Adakiye Summa Irikintra Teramberide. All that is possible. What is impossible is to control the mind. You see, the insight there, all this is possible means what? All this can be attained. There's nothing that you cannot attain if you try. And these people have got those attainment by many means, one being the yoga. But when you list out all those things, and when you say something is very difficult to attain, it's also attainable, but it is too precious. What is that? Chintai Adakya, that is a controlling your mind. That is a Raja Yoga. So this part 3 mentioned about this, and we will not go through it. We may not have time, we don't go through it. Many people, there is not many bhashyam on it. Some take it up very seriously. Tantric takes it very seriously on that. So we will leave that. The last one is called Kaivalyapatha. Here Kaivalyam, whenever they Kaivalyam in yoga, it's closely equivalent to moksha in Vedanta. But Kaivalyam literally means solitude, separation. How does it relate to this yoga darshana? Remember we discussed last class when Sankhya decomposes into many elements. What yoga did, recomposes back into the top and then separate from the Prakriti, become Purusha. Separation, isolation, solitudeness, liberation, this Kaivalya. So here he talks about the Kaivalyapatha. So he talks about the what is that. We don't need this because they stop there. Yoga is a Dvaita Darshana. Like a Jains, you will be floating in the astral space as a free person all the time. For what? So if I am still not one with the Brahman, I'm not liberated. So we have, I don't say in my limited knowledge, I can't say contradiction, uncomfortable to go through these things because it doesn't sit very well with Vedanta. So we will not go through 4. We will not go through 3 and 4. We can maybe draw 1 or 2 as an example to illustrate part 1 and 2. Okay. So this is so if you look at it, if we add up that, it's 196 sutras. Some book may say 195 because in part 3, when they expand it, somebody split halfway and made it 2 sutras. Like, like Brahma Sutra by Vedavyasa. There are many sutras, right? Brahma Sutra. Bhagavan Shankara split into 555. Ramanujacharya split into 543 or something like that. So there are some numbers different, but don't worry about that. So we take it 196 sutras. 106 we will go through. Some we go through in greater detail. But all we go through the literal meaning. So after this, by God willing, we finish this course. And if you are sincere and follow through, you should be able to pick up any book on those things later in life. And when you read it, it will give you a much better grounding and understanding. But it's not for reading, of course. It is for abhyasam. So when we go through this part 1 as well as in part 2, within my I underline this word, very, very, very limited knowledge of mine, I'll give you what is my experience of meditation and dhyana. And there are a lot of Mahatmas among you out there. You can do it, but you will be in a better position to learn from them because you are not doing it for ritualistic dhyana. You're not doing, of course, bhakti is there. It is not just on a bhakti without having a purpose on it. So you will be able to qualify. So much ado, I think that concludes the context. Now we go into the text proper. I have sent you the text. I think you can have it with you. What I would suggest is that because they are very small sentences, it's also a very good way to understand Sanskrit language, learn Sanskrit. That's a side benefit. But you can see, the thing is, we will go through each sutra. But you cannot just do away with one and go to the next one. I told you in some other, I think in Bhagavad Gita class, something I told you, you can finish one slogan by itself, it gives you everything else. Here it is not like this. It's an applied science. 1 will lead to 2, will lead to 3, will lead to 4, will lead to 5, like this. Or it may lead to 2 to 21 and come back to 3. So it is better I would follow the order, but I may seldom go to refer back to forward reference somewhere. So if you have a text with you, it'll be useful. But what I also suggest you, once you finish, until the next class come in, just 5 minutes, 10 minutes a day, just repeat this sutras in your mind and try to understand it. So that way it becomes quite easy for you to correlate. So let's now get on with this. Atha Yoganusashanam. This is the first sutra. We are in Samadhi Pata. Atha Yoganusashanam. 2 words. We can spread this down in a minute. This sutra is called Uddesha Sutra. Each sutra can be in a different type. There is no need to know this, but I'm telling you because I'm going to use this to give you some memory points so that you can be very easily remember certain things. Uddesham. You always say, we use, especially in Tamil, people use this word Uddesham. What's Uddesham? Purpose, pradigna. Pradigna also is fine. That enunciate the topic. If a sutra is giving the topic that's going to be the context of the text, that sutra can be called Uddesha Sutra. Which means next time when you go to another sutra, Brahma Sutra, you can find out what is the sutra all about by looking at the Uddesha Sutra. The same thing in Meenalaya-Channel, you remember that? So in Meenalaya-Channel, we say what is the purpose, who is doing what, same way. Samjnana is another one where the topic is conceptualized. The first one gives you the indication of the aim. Second one, conceptualize this one. Paribhasha or Nirdesha is define a term. You have to go through these terms because many words that Patanjali uses are very different meaning in other colloquial sentences. It's paribhashas there. So there are certain sutras that are called Nirdesha Sutras. So we need to be very careful and understand those sutras because a misunderstanding means viparita jnanam. There are some Vidhi Sutras which tells you a condition that injunction. You must do it this way, Vidhi. Niyama. Same thing is said in a different way. Don't do that way. Don't do this one. Injunction. Atidesha gives you analogy. Yeah, there are a few more. We don't need to know everything. So, but what I'm saying is, a sutram is a particular type. We need to be very careful and understand what is Uddesha, what is Nirdesha, Paribhasha, okay, that define the terms, what is Vidhi, what is Niyama, because these are the things, misunderstanding will lead to confusion. So here, the Atha Yoganusashanam is Uddesha Sutra, because it is giving you that I am going to talk about Yoganusasana. The word Atha. Atha literally means now, this auspicious moment. They say the sound Om and Atha are primordial sounds. It comes from the Brahma. Atha. Then Idham came in from the Shakti. So wherever the Om is used in Sanskrit, in scriptures, Atha is used. So therefore, by starting this, like for example, Atha Dharma Jignasa is a Dharma Sutra from Jaimini. Atha Brahma Jignasa is a sutra from Vyasa, Brahma Sutra. So here, therefore, Atha has got an auspicious moment, signifies. Literal meaning is now. Now what? He is giving sasana. Sasana means instruction, guidance, discipline, knowledge. You see, he is not going to say, now I am going to give you the instruction. He says, now instruction. You see, alpaksharam. Sutra means remove unnecessary words. You expect him to give you some knowledge. He says, now atha sasanam. I am instruction, giving instruction. It's very clear. Then why he added many things in between? What are the in between is added? He added yoga. Okay, what instruction he need to give? And sangittam, undoubtedly he should explain. So he is giving now yoga instruction. You may ask the question, what is yoga? That's the paribhasha. We need to wait for the paribhasha sutra to define the term. He is telling you the uddesha. You understand? So he says, therefore you can say, Atha yoga sasanam. Finish. Now I am giving yoga instruction. But then there is something in between. What is that? Anu. You know, anu is an important word. You say in music, you say anurag, anucharanam, anupallavi. Anu means that which follows. So therefore here it means I am, or now the auspicious moment has come. I'm giving you the yoga instruction as a follow-up. Now, two things we must know here. Atha has got another lakshyartham. Lakshyartham is after completing, thence, thereupon. In fact, Brahma Sutra starts, Athato Brahma Jignasa. Atha Brahma Jignasa. Now, then, thereafter, therefore. That means, I am going to start now. It's an auspicious moment. And also, you, the disciple, have completed something. That means you are there with the right frame of mind, and therefore you can be a good recipient of this. You will not understand anything in life if you don't have a keen desire to understand. That is why very difficult to give prakti. Very difficult. See, people say you can pray to, I think one of the greatness about Patanjali's Yoga Sutra is because what Sankhya left out, what Kapila left out, the Ishwaram, God, surrender, Patanjali is going to enforce on it. That's why sometimes when you take this Yoga Sutra and derive something out of it, to nurture a particular guna of yours, of course you can do. You don't need to be God-fearing. You can follow yogas and become a very powerful personality of applying certain part of your mind, because it's, after all, an exercise to shape your mind. You can become a monster. But to be for the right purpose, you must give up to God. That's not easy. It's not going to come from many prayers and Sahasranamam, bhajans, all this. It's fine, they'll help you. But you have to have Chitta Shuddhi. What is the Drishtana? How do I prove it? The most important example and most precious example for surrender, without showing it as a surrender, is how a little child goes to the mother. What does a child do? Child will acquire all the toys. Yeah, it won't give it to anybody. It's very possessive. It keeps the toys with it. It plays. Even the mother asks them, "You don't give the mother. It's all one toys." But a moment comes in that it needs food, or it something triggers it. You just throw all the toys, run to the mother. Toys are not important. What was the possession, depossession, is given away in a fraction of a second. Absolute dispassion. You don't tell the child that you have virakti. She doesn't know it. He doesn't know it. It's pure chitta shuddhi. Absolute surrender. Surrender doesn't mean that I become a slave to the mother. Even the child may be a boss to the mother, the way she treats the mother. But don't misunderstand. Surrender means obedience. Obedience is a good meaning of it. Surrender is love. Love can be a commanding love. Like Andal is challenging Krishna to come and marry her. Love. There are great saints sages who commands the lords, come and take me. That's also surrender. But the surrender comes from Chitta Shuddhi. We are going to get that one through yoga. Vairagyam, just dispassionate. So when you have come to that stage where you are able to give up, can't give up everything, right? You and I cannot just give up our life, commitment to the family and society and become a saintly life. Even though I wish to do it, I can't do it. But I can give up a part of my time 100% for this. Now, if that is not possible, I would say knowledge is vanity. You can say that I know yoga, I can recite the mantras, I can illustrate the meaning, but of knowledge, no value. So you have to really commit that I have this time, half an hour, 15 minutes, three times a day. I'm going to do this yogaabhyasam, dhyanam, japam. Now tell me, how am I going to go? So when this is the beauty of it. Whereas when we go to Vedanta, Tattva put a great barrier. Okay, I'll teach you. Without the adhikaratvam, you cannot really proceed. Here it tells you, doesn't matter. Come. Because who needs to clean the mind? Whose mind is dirty? Is it not? Why I have to clean the mind when it is absolutely pure and pristine? No. So therefore, there is no need to shy about, no need to have any thoughts about, am I good to go to this high-sounding philosophical, scriptural text? It is for us. Our mind is dirty. But what is needed here, the atha means that you have committed that you're going to go through this. And that's why upon completing this understanding and upon showing the commitment, since you are there, yoga sashanam, yoga anusashanam. Now, another beauty of anu, what is the Tattvartham here? Two ways we can interpret that one. One is this sasanam, this instruction is anusasanam. Like anupallavi. Anupallavi cannot exist without the pallavi. Therefore, this anusasanam, this yoga instruction I'm giving you, this Patanjali is saying, is coming after the great tradition of Guru Parampara. Which means it is not Patanjali who invented this. In our Sanatana Dharma, nobody can take credit for anything else. They can only be instrumental in consolidating, aggregating, expanding, expounding. Never take ownership on it. So he has followed the Guru tradition. I think in Vyasabhashim, he talks about this is coming from Hiranyagarbha. In fact, Vyasabhashim condemns Patanjali Sutra not for Atmajnanam, because Atmajnanam can only come from Upanishads. You cannot say, I learned Patanjali Yoga Sudra, I attain Atmajnanam. No, Patanjali doesn't say that. It says it makes you qualified to go to attain the Jnana Siddhi. So therefore, Anusasanam is therefore a parampara Jnanam, its heritage. Even they say the Ashtangam, which Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyagara, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi. We'll know all those things. Of this, the first 5 of them existed even before Patanjali Sutra. Therefore, he added the other 3 and made into a synthesized. So here what we are therefore taking the insight is, we are going to get which is very traditional and parampara. Therefore, the meaning would be for this, now at this auspicious moment of transition, see, I put both the literal meaning and the lakshyartha. Atha means now at this auspicious moment of transition, because we are ready to transit. Begins the instruction in the discipline of yoga, following the tradition of Guru Parampara. So there is nothing great, difficult part to understand in this one. So this is the Uddesha mantra. Hey, I'm going to finish on time today. So let's take the next one. You can all together, we can recite this now, Shantipada. Om Satoma Satgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti. Thank you very much. I think just on time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Raja.
Thanks a lot.
Very simple, very
Thank you.
nice.
No problem.
Very nice. Thank you, Raja. Thank you, Balaji.
Okay. Bye. Bye.